Hey everyone, welcome to another tutorial. My name's James and you are watching James Makes Clothes. So on my channel, I do a lot of tutorials about pattern design, pattern drafting, sewing tutorials, and whatnot that complement the pattern design. You have a pattern, or you have a bunch of patterns that you've copied from your old clothes or you created yourself, but now you need larger sizes, or you need a small size, or someone complements your garment and you want to make them something, but they're a little smaller, they're a little larger. What do? Well, you grade the pattern. So this tutorial is about grading a simple top pattern with a sleeve. So if you like the content on my channel, please subscribe. That would be fantastic, and make sure you notify yourself when I release new videos. Pattern grading. Now, it is basically a method to enlarge or reduce a pattern, a commercial pattern or one that you've made. Now, in the factories or the industry, they have a standard set of grading measurements that they apply to the various sizes of their patterns that they have. But if you are obviously watching this, you are designing patterns at home for yourself or maybe a few other people, and your grading measurements might be a little different. And so that's fantastic, because I'm going to show you a simple method to enlarge or reduce another pattern from a pattern that you already have. The tutorial I do is actually quite simple, but it does require some paper and some cutting. So you'll need to you'll need to get some paper scissors, a mechanical pencil, and your pattern. So with a pattern grading system, there are two ways that you want to make a pattern larger. With the circumference, so you make it larger through the circumference, which is around the body, or you make it longer in the length of the sleeve, or shorter. Once you have decided on the measurement that you're going to apply to the front, back, and sleeve of your pattern in order to make it larger, such as wider and longer, then you will draw the grading lines directly onto that pattern, and you will cut those grading lines out. Once you've decided on the measurement that you are going to apply to your pattern pieces, you will now draw the grading lines directly onto the pattern. The grading lines that I use are basically a standard location. So on the front and back, I have the front pattern piece here. The same applies to the back as well. You do a grading point across the chest or across the shoulder if it was the back. Generally around the waist or a little bit below to either decrease or increase the length. And you also would apply one through the neck. This one does not have one, but the neck point line would run parallel to the shoulder. It would either stop at this grading point, which divides, Once you've decided on the measurement, you will add to your finished pattern. You will now draw the grading lines on your pattern, and I've indicated the grading lines here. You will then cut these along these graded lines and use these individual pieces to grade your new pattern, either larger or smaller. The standard points that you would use when drawing your grading lines on are at the waist, a little bit below or above. I would say below the waist. That increases the length of the body. Across chest or across the shoulder if it was the back. And this increases the armhole as well as the length through the chest or back area. Then we have a neck grading point. And this grading point runs parallel to the shoulder seam, which is up here. This grade line down the center, there is one, however, sometimes there are two, and that would run either through the neck, most likely through the neck right here in the front. But on a standard shirt like this, we only need one point here. So back to the neck line grading line, the neck grading line can either just stop right at this grading line, or it can go right through. And if it went right through, it would also add more or less to the armhole, which is right here, as well as the neck. If you just extended the line to the center, it would just add to the neck and increase the slope of the shoulder slightly. With the sleeve, the grade points, it's a little bit different. So you have to remember that a sleeve attaches to the front and the back of your pattern. So if you've got a grading point here that increases the armhole, you apply that to the front side of the sleeve. And same with the back, you would apply that to the back side of the sleeve. And that would run parallel to the side seam here, not the center. You can see I've crossed out that line and went it like this. And you also would apply a grade point to increase the length of the sleeve itself. If I had a more curved sleeve such as this, sometimes there's a grade point through the sleeve cap here going this way, which I've done on this sleeve. So as you notice, I haven't added the ease on this part. I've added it in the sleeve cap, but that actually increases the sleeve diameter so that it would match into the armhole along the same grading point. So that's the variable when you're doing a sleeve. See how my grading point, this is the curve of the sleeve, it's a lot flatter. So you have to factor that in sometimes. When you are grading the sleeve and the armhole wider or narrow, you will need to add the same measurement to the armhole as well as the body patterns. So 1/4 inch through the front, 1/4 inch here, and say in the back, 1/4 inch across the shoulder blade, 1/4 inch to the back of the sleeve. And we've discussed the neckline either extending to the armhole or just the vertical grade line center of the pattern. And the neckline, you usually don't increase more than 1/8 of an inch. Usually the neckline, you don't need to increase the diameter of it when you're grading patterns. If you are changing the neckline completely, that is redesigning your pattern. Because this is a sweatshirt, we're going to want elastic cuffs or ribbed cuffs. When you are grading or decreasing, when you're grading your pattern up, generally you don't need to increase the diameter or the diameter of your cuff or the circumference of your cuff. However, if you are reducing your pattern, you need to apply that grading reduction to your cuff pattern as well. And you notice how there's 2 grade points here. This is where I would attach my cuff. You need to apply those same 2 grading points onto your cuff. So wherever, the thing with grading and grade lines is wherever you are sewing your seams together, that's where you need to apply the same grading measurement. So just remember that when it starts getting a little bit complicated. So if you have a desire to learn more about pattern grading, you can check out this book that I learned from. And next up is the grading method I love that's super simple, foolproof, and reliable. We're grading a simple sweatshirt pattern, such as this, into a larger size, and you can apply the exact same principle to make the pattern smaller as well. You need a ruler and you need a mechanical pencil so you have a nice sharp line. First things first, okay, so we've discussed the grain or the grading lines. We've applied them to our pattern. I'm just going to connect all this together so you can see how I've drawn the grading lines on. So you can see where my grading lines are and where I've cut them out. So that's why you need an extra pattern. That's why you need to trace a pattern off so that you can draw the grading lines on and you can cut them. Like so. So that's my original pattern. Those are my grading lines. That's where I've cut it. I've labeled them. So 1, 2, 3, mine are labeled different, but you could do 1, 2, 3, where you want to lay them down first. That really helps. First step to grading, manually grading your pattern, is you need a reference line that you are going to lay your pattern onto so that you know it's nice and straight. My reference line is the center front of the pattern because I'm grading from the center front out. Okay, so draw a nice long line. Super easy. Take your either pattern here or pattern here. I'm gonna do the center front or center back. Sorry, this is the back. Center back first. Now lay your pattern down and match it up nice and clean with the edge. Trace it. Just trace it. Okay, so that's our first pattern piece. Now, whatever grade you're doing or whatever circumference increase you're doing, you're going to apply that to the front or the back pattern piece. Remember, what you do on one side will also be mirrored on the other side. So if you want your piece very, very wide, I wouldn't go more than 1/2 inch wide. So in between, 1/8 or 1/2 of an inch. If you go wider than, if you go say like 1 inch wide, you might have to remake the pattern to ensure that the fit is proper. But if I do about a 2-inch circumference increase around the whole pattern, which is 1/2 times 4, then I most likely will not have to make another prototype and refit my pattern. So let's just do 1/2 inch. And I'm just measuring it out from the edge of that pattern piece, like that. And I've decided I want 1/4 of an inch in the shoulder blade area extra. So that's our original grading line, and that's our 1/4 inch increase. So then take your new pattern piece, and don't forget to, like what I'm just doing here, is extend the line from the original pattern piece like so, because you need to make sure that this piece is flush right angled properly, okay? Trace this off. You can see how this is all forming now, correct? So line this up. We only need to trace it here and here if we need a reference point. Extend your line. Now, I'm gonna do a full inch because I want this really long. So let's just do a full inch here. Extend this down. All right, and put this little one in here. Measure. Slightly off, but I'm sorry. I mean, it'll be more precise if I was doing this like not from the side like what I'm doing now. Now this is my waist piece. This is my final piece on the outside. Okay. Then we just line this one up. So you can see how simple and straightforward the idea is. Trace that. I mean, at this point, all we need to do is really just trace where the hem is, right? And right in here, this is our new pattern piece, all in here. This used to be an extra small, so now it's probably a small or a medium now, and we graded the front. The same exact, or the back, the same exact method is on the front. So I'm gonna skip the front demo because you can do exactly the same on the front. I'm gonna get right into the sleeve so you can see how we do the sleeve. Now, if you have ribbing or waistband ribbing and you happen to grade into the neck, you're going to need to add that measurement to both sides of your ribbing because one's for the back and one's for the front. Same with the waistband. If you do 1/2 inch here, you're gonna have to add 1/2 inch to both sides of your ribbing. Let's just go right into the sleeve now. So you can see the sleeve is done a little different, but the concept's basically the same. You start with a line. This is kind of like your balancy grading line. It doesn't need to be drawn at the bottom, right? Basically, we take our sleeve So our sleeve, we've drawn a line right down the center. We've done this by folding the sleeve in half and matching the seams up, the underarm seam. So that's our first pattern. And we're gonna trace that down. Make sure we trace very accurately. The center is going through the center. We don't want anything off when we're grading. Okay, so I'm kind of reaching, so I don't know how great this tracing is going to be, but you will obviously be doing a better job at home. And you know how I'm holding it with my hand? Well, I probably recommend doing fabric weights for this, but you know, if you're feeling like you're in a hurry, or sometimes people don't really care, then you can just do that with your hand. Okay, same concept, but now I have the center of the sleeve. We've decided that right in here is 1/4 of an inch in the back and 1/4 of an inch in the front. So on either side, we're gonna do a 1/4 of an inch. Now, if you just wanted the armhole wider, but the bottom you wanted the same, you would just tilt your, so let's do that. Let's just add the 1/4 of an inch to the top where the armhole is, right? I've only extended my line to there. Now I could just curve it slightly as well, like this, so it tapers in, and then just draw the line like that, connecting to the bottom. That actually works as well. You're gonna have more of a tapered sleeve. But for this tutorial, we're gonna do the 1/4 inch all the way down, so you can see how to make the cuff bigger, or the width at the bottom bigger if that's what you want. Generally, you don't necessarily need to grade the cuff of a shirt wider. So tapering off to about here would totally work. Okay, so got a few pattern pieces. That's why it's important to number your pattern piece. So let's do something. Let's grade one side with it tapered in so you can see what that looks like. So this is my sleeve extension. Now I'm just lining it up right in here like that, holding it down or weighing it down, tracing it off. Okay, that's our grade with the sleeve angled, so no larger cuff. And this is what a larger cuff would look like, or basically the fullness is going from the armhole all the way down to the wrist. And this is just for grading larger. We're not making the sleeve puffier or bigger. If you were doing that, you would work in the center here. If you wanted like a puff sleeve or some, I don't know, sweater with a puffy sleeve, I've seen it. Okay, so we're doing 1 inch down here for the length of the sleeve. And if you notice, this right here is slightly curved. That's not a big deal. This little curve right here where it doesn't go completely straight, you see how that is? That's not a problem. That's just from angling the piece here. It's not going to affect the way our sleeve sits. Okay, so trace the last sleeve part with our new length. Add our outside. So this one, there's no grade, right? So I just put that flush, not that one, this one I just put flush. So the only grade was in the armhole. This one, if I was to do both 1/4 inch, would make my cuff 1/2 inch larger. So it can be quite, and that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot for the way it fits. But there you have it. That's our quick grading demo on a simple pattern. So this is our new pattern, and we would label that and cut that out. Make sure you watch my video on the bomber jacket DIY copy, because I actually do a full grading demo with the neckline as well, so you don't want to miss that. And thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and also check out the link that I provided if you want to know the grading book I used when I learned how to do pattern grading. So thank you guys so much for watching, and enjoy grading your patterns, making them larger, making them smaller. Comments are always welcome.